very often we see that cadre deployment really takes or gets sped up as soon as a certain person is appointed as a national commissioner or as a minister of police.
The South African Police Service is experiencing massive backlogs with its DNA database. This has significant implications for the prosecution of violent crime in the country. In a recent episode of my podcast, Solutions with David Ansara, I spoke with Ian Cameron, a community safety expert with Action Society. He and I discussed the problems with the SAPS database and the general capacity problems that the police service is experiencing. If you enjoyed this content and you would like to watch the full interview with Ian Cameron, you can do so by clicking on the link in the description below. So maybe, Ian, let's just look at some of the violent crime trends in South Africa, just so that we have a sense of the scale of the problem. How bad is violent crime in South Africa at the moment?
It's very bad. I'm actually scrolling through a few things here in front of me. Just in terms of the gender-based violence issue, and I like to use that as an example. I think it's something that's quite commonly spoken about at the moment. We have probably about 116 rapes per day in South Africa. Only 1 in 9 rapes are reported. Obviously, thousands and thousands of these incidents occur without successful prosecution actually taking place. Less than a 7% successful prosecution rate when it comes to GBV, specifically sexual assault and rape cases. And to add insult to injury, we've got the whole issue of the DNA backlog. Now, I've really zoomed in on the GBV part. If we go look at something like robbery with aggravated circumstances, attempted murder, those types of things, these crimes have increased quite a bit over the last few years. Obviously, COVID had quite an impact on it decreasing at the first very strict levels of lockdown. And then as soon as that lessened, we immediately saw the increase again. A lot of people were very worried when they heard the last quarterly crime stats come out. But it's important to understand that the lockdown had a major impact. So it's not as though crime suddenly increased so much. It is actually just the crime we had before lockdown. But it also goes to show that the government is actually able to do something.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
Okay, so Ian, those are some pretty significant challenges. Obviously, there's been this reversion to the mean in terms of our crime statistics. But I mean, anecdotally, and certainly in terms of the work that you've been doing, it seems that there are some really significant challenges in terms of the South African Police Service. They just seem incapacitated at the moment, underfunded, under-resourced, and also just incapable of enforcing basic law and order. What is happening with our police service? Why is it failing to do its job?
There are a few reasons for this. I think it's firstly crucial that we look at Bheki Cele himself, the current Minister of Police in South Africa. So in June of 2012, he was actually fired as the then National Commissioner of Police, and there was corruption and a lot of other things being spoken about at the time. He was then removed, but now he's the Minister of Police. So it just carries on to add insult to injury when we see the way that the police is managed. Apart from that, we've got a serious issue with political interference and merit appointments in the police. So now we've got this rotten apple in terms of leadership. Very often we see that cadre deployment really takes or gets sped up as soon as a certain person is appointed as a national commissioner or as a minister of police. So eventually you've got this whole political cadre at the top structure of the police, and below that you've got a few strong merit-appointed police officials that have just stuck through it and just carrying on. But unfortunately, they're not led to success because the police, whether we like it or not, is actually being abused as an iron fist of the governing party in the country. I've given a very broad answer, but I think it paints the picture.
All right, Ian. Well, one of the major problems within the SAPS is also in their investigative ability. So not just on the street enforcement, but their particularly their forensic capacity has been greatly diminished. And you've been campaigning around the problems with the DNA registry, the electronic database that has been implemented within the SAPS at great cost. There's something like 300,000 DNA samples that are kind of clogging the system, that there's a massive backlog. Could you explain to our viewers and listeners what the problem is there?
Yeah, so the DNA backlog is a major cause for concern. It not only delays justice, but it's going to deny justice and already has denied justice to thousands of people. It simply means that we currently have a backlog of about 300,000 cases. That means that for each case, you have got probably an average of around 4 samples that need to be processed. So that equals 1.2 million samples that we've got a backlog with at forensic centers currently. And it also then means that it's going to take even longer for perpetrators to be arrested and obviously then convicted, should it even get that far. On top of that, the PCAM system, which is the Property Control and Exhibit Management System of the police, was switched off by Forensic Data Analysis, which is an external company, because of non-payment. So that means that a further 8 million pieces of evidence cannot be referenced or found at the moment because of the PCAM system being shut down. And these two kind of run close to each other, because obviously, you've got DNA on the one side, then you've got other evidence on the other side, and both of these components can play a major role in making sure that prosecution or conviction takes place properly and that the right thing happens. So incredibly worrying, and it really does have an impact on all of us, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and obviously many of those DNA samples will be for instances of sexual assaults. So that has a huge impact on our ability to deal with sexual crimes. But now we are speaking in October, Ian, and only a few months ago we had the riots in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Do you think that this was a culmination of the police's inability to deal with criminality in our society?
So it's important to say that I think the major reason for what happened was infighting in the ANC, and it just further highlighted the total lack of capacity, resources, skills, political willpower in the South African Police Service to really sort out a situation like that. I think to just give further depth, I mean, South Africa in the last 10, 11 years has lost 80% of its reservist police members, which means that it's 60,000 people that could have been wearing uniform during that unrest. Now, obviously, all 60,000 wouldn't have been in KZN necessarily. The point is just there are so many cheap and easily accessible, easy or simply manageable solutions that we could have used to prevent these types of things. And this has just shown that the police are going in their own direction. There's no attempt to have synergy with South African citizens on ground level. And I feel very sorry for a lot of the members on ground level, the ones that wear the uniform, because during the KZN unrest, I spoke to quite a few of those cops, and it was very worrying to hear that they didn't have enough ammunition. They didn't have food and water. They were just simple things that government could not do right during that time. Now, if that happened for only a week, imagine if we faced the types of riots that we're seeing in Eswatini at the moment, what an impact that could have. So it's very worrying to see, and it highlights the total collapse of the South African Police Service.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this analysis and you would like to watch the full interview with Ian Cameron, you can do so by clicking here. And I'd also be grateful if you could subscribe to my other channel that's linked over here. My name is David Ansara. Until next time, take care.